Michel Pereira's title run is about to begin. Let me explain. This weekend he will be taking on Anthony Fluffy Hernandez in a 5-round main event. Since moving up 15 pounds from welterweight to middleweight, Michel Pereira has looked amazing. The 3 fights he has competed in at 185 combined have only lasted 3 minutes and 1 second. Pereira was oversized at welterweight, and middleweight is his true home, I believe. Even down at welterweight, he was moving mad, doing backflips and kicks off the cage wall. He's 9-2 in the UFC, 3-0 at middleweight. Not a bad record, but Fluffy will be his most difficult matchup to date. Anthony Hernandez is a gritty fighter with strong grappling to back it up. He's 6-2 in the UFC and even submitted Rodolfo Vieira, who earned his black belt under Julio Cesar Pereira, one of the best heavyweight gi practitioners who has an 8th degree red and white coral belt. This basically means he was a black belt for 3 years, transitioned to a black and red coral belt for 7 more years, and then further transitioned into the red and white coral belt for 10 years, all under the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation, or the IBJJF, which has the strictest system of graduation, so it's not like it was some Mickey Mouse belt. Basically, only the best BJJ players have this belt tied around them, and that guy trained Vieira. Anthony Hernandez was able to submit the skilled black belt, Rodolfo Vieira, who had multiple BJJ World Champion wins, even winning gold at ADCC in 2015. All 4 of Rodolfo Vieira's UFC wins came by submission as well, but got submitted by Fluffy. Vieira took Fluffy down seconds into their bout, controlling him for the majority of the round until they stood back up. Once standing, Fluffy pressured heavy, landing big shots, and somehow Vieira gassed out badly. Keeping Vieira on the back foot meant that his takedown attempts were going to be slower and not as effective. Once the first round was over, it was clear Fluffy had worn out the black belt. Vieira had some good control to begin the second round, but Fluffy got back up and continued making him work. Rodolfo would go for a lazy takedown attempt, and Fluffy would catch him in the anaconda choke before smoothly transitioning into the guillotine. It was clear Vieira was gassed, as he wasn't even trying to defend or fight the hands. But this is what Fluffy is known for. He makes people work until they're completely worn out. The biggest issue of Michel Pereira is his fight IQ, always making big, explosive movements. His movement is similar to capoeira and moves you would see at the club, but believe it or not, he never actually trained in capoeira. His first combat sport was karate at 12 and jiu-jitsu at 16. ESPN says that his first pro MMA bout was at 13 years old, but I was unable to find any footage on this. There were some more of his fights that I couldn't find any video on either, so I'm not sure if that dude Edson Diaz existed, but wow, 13 is just crazy. His next fight wouldn't be until he was 18, however. Michel Pereira has only been finished twice in his 42-fight career, once by an armbar back in 2014, and then once by TKO in 2018. He has multiple fights going to a 3rd round decision, and has only seen the championship rounds once, getting a rear naked choke in the 5th round. But this fight was weirdly overturned because Pereira missed weight, a common theme before he moved up to middleweight. But still, I've never seen a fight overturned because the winner missed weight. The fight against Santiago Ponzinibbio was the most Michel Pereira has ever been hit in a single UFC fight. The fight was all Pereira through 7.5 minutes. Clearly the bigger, yet quicker man with the more powerful shots. Michel Pereira is wild in most of his fights, but he's wild because he has that confidence. Once he starts to get hurt a little, this is when the fatigue sets in for him. Ponzi would begin to land some jabs on Pereira, making him back up and begin to look labored in his efforts. If Pereira loses to Hernandez, it will be here. Once he begins to get on the fence and shell up when he's tired. Especially with the drowning style of Fluffy, he can wear Pereira down in these moments. Ponzi even got a slick double leg at the end of the round, with Pereira giving his back to partially stand up. He stayed in this position for way too long, opting to ride the round out. Fluffy will jump on the back and look to choke. In the final round, Pereira came out strong, but Ponzi stayed patient and let the brief energy boost from the break go away from Pereira. After about a minute and a half, Pereira started to load up on his shots, becoming one-dimensional in his offense, but still landing good front kicks to end his combos, probably his best attack during that fight. He shouldn't be throwing wild like this against Fluffy, and I think that he showed to be more measured in his 3 middleweight fights, despite none of them lasting more than 66 seconds. The final minute against Ponzi was a dogfight, showing that he does have the heart to push when he's tired, but that was against a striker. Ultimately, he got the split decision win. This was his last fight at welterweight, and if you remember, he was supposed to fight Wonderboy at UFC 291, but the fight was cancelled because Pereira missed weight and Wonderboy was unwilling to fight him, prompting the move to middleweight. Let me tell you why Pereira will beat Fluffy though. If you look at Fluffy versus Vieira, that's basically what Pereira needs to do against Fluffy. Pereira will not make him tired, obviously, but by keeping Fluffy on the back foot, this is how Pereira will win. Roman Kopylov was doing well against Fluffy early, landing strikes and defending takedowns, and I think that Pereira hits much harder than Kopylov. Kopylov was able to circle off the fence to not get trapped, but eventually Fluffy closed that distance, and this is where he made the striker work. Kopylov would get held against the fence, stifling his offense completely, and constantly working. Fluffy started to walk this man down, taking his best shots and discouraging Kopylov. Kopylov got taken down and made the mistake of giving up his back, defending briefly before getting submitted. Fluffy in his last 3 fights shot 14 or more takedowns each. So Pereira has to be mindful, but I think his cardio is going to see massive improvements moving up a division. He won't be as drained, and he will be the much more powerful and faster man, but the trade-off is Fluffy's endurance. This is very much a grappler versus striker matchup. If the fight goes past 3 rounds, I think it's Fluffy's fight to win. His endurance will simply be too much to handle. The thing is, I think Pereira will find a way to win inside those rounds though. His power only seems to be emphasized at 185, and he has to use that early. Keep Hernandez on the back foot for as long as he can, and he usually does a good job of moving laterally until he's tired. Once that happens, he will get trapped on the fence, covering up, and Fluffy will drown from there. Pereira is wild, and I think we will see some explosive attack from him to end the fight. Michel Pereira is one of those guys that has incredible potential. Him, Kevin Holland, and Joaquin Buckley are some of the dudes that, if they each lock in, they could be top 5 fighters. I think that Michel Pereira's time is now, and he's beginning to lock in, finding a new home at 185. Hernandez is probably the toughest stylistic matchup for him in the entire division, other than Strickland. Strickland in a 5-round fight would make Pereira look easy because of the pressure and insane defense as well. My prediction for this fight will be Michel Pereira by 2nd round knockout. If those 4th or 5th rounds come around, say goodbye to that prediction though. Both of these guys are incredibly fun to watch, and someone is going to get finished, I bet. The entire card's actually a pretty good one. A lot of good fighters, and absolute dogs fighting Saturday night. And the main event is no different. Let me know if you think Fluffy will win. I think that is very likely, especially in the later rounds for him to win, but I think Michel Pereira is going to find a knockout. After this fight, it's only up for him, and I honestly think he could make a run at the title based off the way the division has been looking. He's basically the 185 version of Johnny Walker, but if Johnny Walker could take a punch. So with that being said, make sure you elbow that subscribe button, bet the house on Michel Pereira, round 2 knockout, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.